You've likely heard the terms sociopath and psychopath before, but what do they actually mean? In fact, neither is a clinical diagnosis, and while both suggest a similar set of traits relating to antisocial behavior and emotional detachment, they have different origins and varying relevance in today's scientific community. Today, both psychopathy and sociopathy may be used as terms implying an antisocial personality disorder, the official diagnosis for an individual displaying the traits of either term. While there is much overlap between psychopathy and sociopathy, they are not one and the same. What is a sociopath? Antisocial personality disorder, sometimes called sociopathy, is a mental disorder in which a person consistently shows no regard for right and wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. Signs of a sociopath. Consistent behavior patterns in sociopaths include lack of empathy for others, impulsive behavior, attempting to control others with threats or aggression, using intelligence, charm, or charisma to manipulate others, not learning from mistakes or punishment, lying for personal gain, showing a tendency to physical violence and fights, generally superficial relationships, sometimes stealing or committing other crimes, threatening suicide to manipulate without intention to act, sometimes abusing drugs or alcohol, trouble with responsibilities such as a job, paying bills. The term sociopathy was coined in the era of behaviorism between 1920 to 1950 as a primary psychological theory, but it has since fallen out of use. This term has not been used in modern science for several decades. For example, you cannot get funding from the National Institute of Health, NIH, to study sociopaths, says Kent Keel, Ph.D., a neuroscientist studying brain imaging, criminal psychopathy and other psychotic disorders in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When the term was still in use, it was believed that people were born as blank slates and subsequently shaped by their environment or social forces, ultimately resulting in a good or bad personality, says Keel. However, this view was determined to be incorrect and, as focus shifted to increasing accuracy and reliability in diagnosis, the term sociopathy was dropped from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, about 20 years ago. Now let's talk about the next one. What is a psychopath? A person affected by chronic mental disorder with abnormal or violent social behavior. What are the symptoms of a psychopath? Signs of psychopathy. Behavior that conflicts with social norms, disregarding or violating the rights of others, inability to distinguish between right and wrong, difficulty with showing remorse or empathy, tendency to lie often, manipulating and hurting others, recurring problems with the law. Even though the term is not an official diagnosis per the DSM-5, psychopathy remains a term in psychology today to indicate individuals who display high levels of unemotionalism or callousness, as well as impulsiveness or developmental antisocial traits, such as destructive or aggressive behavior. Symptoms of psychopathy generally appear in early childhood and impact all areas of an individual's life, including relationships with family, friends, at school and at work. About 1.2% of the adult population has psychopathy, according to a 2021 study in Frontiers of Psychology. 1. Those with psychopathy tend to display antisocial behaviors, such as a lack of empathy and disregard for the well-being and emotions of others, which can negatively impact relationships both personally and professionally as they struggle to connect and trust the world around them. Psychopath and sociopath traits. The traits of a psychopath and a sociopath are the same, according to Keel, with both falling under the clinical diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. However, in terms of social construction, the two terms are viewed somewhat differently. Specifically, sociopaths tend to act more impulsively and erratically compared to psychopaths. Sociopaths generally struggle to maintain a job or a family life, whereas psychopaths may be able to do so. While psychopaths generally struggle to form attachments, sociopaths may be able to do so with a like-minded individual. Psychopaths may be better able to disassociate from their actions and experience less guilt than sociopaths. In order for a patient to be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, they must display a persistent disregard for the rights of others, according to the DSM-5 clinical criteria as listed in the Merck Manual, a medical reference guide. This disregard is indicated by the presence of 3 or more of the following traits. Disregarding the law, such as committing acts that are grounds for arrest repeatedly. Acting in a deceitful manner, lying repeatedly, deceiving others for personal gain or using aliases. Being impulsive or failing to plan ahead. Acting irresponsibly on a consistent basis, quitting a job without plans to get another or failing to pay bills. Being easily provoked or aggressive, frequently getting into physical fights. Failing to feel remorse, feeling indifferent to or rationalizing the mistreatment of others. Psychopathy and sociopathy causes. While sociopathy, when the term was still in use, was a disorder believed to stem from a person's environment, psychopathy is believed to arise mostly from biology and genetics with some environmental influence, though research on psychopathy's causes is ongoing. There's a lot of current research examining how biology/social forces interact and contribute to the development of psychopathic traits, says Keel. We generally review primary psychopathy as coming from a larger biology/genetic component, contrasted with secondary psychopathy, which is hypothesized to come from more social forces, such as bad parenting or perhaps trauma as a child, contributing more than biology. Risks of psychopathy. There are a number of risks associated with psychopathy. Indeed, psychopathy is one of the best predictors of future violence that we know of, Keel notes. Although not all people with psychopathy are physically violent, studies find that while psychopaths account for less than 1% of the general population, they are responsible for between 30% and 50% of all violent crimes, too. Still, psychopathy does increase a person's tendency toward antisocial and aggressive behavior, which can manifest in various ways in school, the workplace, and social situations. Interpersonal relationships are also highly prone to failure, Keel notes. An affected individual struggles to form trusting bonds and tends to manipulate others and engage in antisocial behaviors, all of which can pose challenges to forming positive interpersonal relationships. That being said, how a person with psychopathy ultimately behaves varies based on the individual, their environment, and their community.